Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of 4Films. So, Alan Moore is a critically acclaimed English writer, magician, occultist, and anarchist. And over the years he's been pretty vocal about not having his name on any of the film adaptations of his work. He even refused to take any payments for them. So what I'm going to do today is talk about 4 of his films, well, the adaptations of his work into films, and compare them to those original works and see if they can stand up on their own. So here's 4 film adaptations of Alan Moore's work. First up is Watchmen from 2009. Now, despite my utter disdain for Zack Snyder and his worship of dark, gritty, psychotic bullshit and worship of Frank Miller because of it, he actually made a pretty decent adaptation, and by decent I mean it's very faithful to the source material. How it looks, how the story flows, is about 99% accurate. But despite a great soundtrack and a handling of dense material from the book, it still seems as though he fundamentally does not understand the material. And yes, it is a deconstruction of superheroes living in the real world, but it's about how that would suck. It's not about, praising how dark and gritty and awesome it would be to have that kind of stuff running around. It's worth a watch out of curiosity, but it really puts an emphasis on a bleak worldview for the wrong reason. On the positive side, though, the cast was very good, as well as the soundtrack, as I said before, but I can completely see how Alan Moore would hate this movie. Next up is 2005's V for Vendetta. While it is a pretty decent film with a very compelling and interesting tale, Mr. Moore had something to say about it. He basically said that the Wachowskis took his story, which is firmly planted in England's own political turmoil at the time it was written, into a Bush-era tale, and that they were too afraid to actually set it in their country and be about who they were implying it was about. He called them out like that and said they were too scared to set it in America. Damn. Damn. That's a mic drop. I gotta call 911, because that was a straight up murder. Other than that, Hugo Weaving and Natalie Portman really do a good job with the characters. And for me personally, the major problem is the same problem that Watchmen has, where they try to put the action spectacle above the actual story. It's very odd to put that front and center when the stories really evolve around the characters, and their thoughts, ideologies, and goals. Now that does result in fighting and action, but it's not for the sake of having fighting and action. And while you could argue that the source material is not wholly Shakespearean in origin, it's also not an arcade beat-em-up. Because the action in both of these films aren't fun, they're just kind of brutal. Which can be fun and interesting to some people, but, in small doses. Third up is 2001's From Hell, starring Johnny Depp and Heather Graham. So once again, like the previous 2 films, this has a very interesting concept, but a very shallow execution. Moore's main vocal criticism was that they replaced a very gruff inspector with a, quote, absinthe-swilling dandy. Which, he is. Oh, Mr. Moore, you're the best. As for the plot details, the major difference is that in the comic book, you see from the perspective of Jack the Ripper. You get to see his source of psychosis. While not full-on spoken or stated, it's kind of up to your interpretation. But it could be what a crazy person is seeing, or maybe there's some supernatural twist to it. Either way, that's what really moved the story along and had this interesting concept. Whereas in the film, you get to see it as the run-of-the-mill mystery that a detective has to solve. While it's not a bad thing, it's like, why would you take something so unique and just dumb it down to standard fare? So once again, cool concept, set to standard fare. It's been all switched up. But Ian Holm as William Gull, aka Jack the Ripper, is great because Ian Holm's great. Johnny Depp and Heather Graham are pretty good in it. They're okay. Well, Heather Graham's always great. Yeah. Last up is 2003's The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Let me tell you something about this film, okay? This film pissed off Alan Moore and illustrator Kevin O'Neill. Not only that, it led to Sean Connery retiring from acting in 2006. That's right, this was his last film. And he hated it so much that he said, I'm done. Go fuck yourselves. Like, holy shit. So the film basically took elements from the first volume of the comic, and they changed it, the story, they changed some characters, added some, and basically just screwed everything up. As movies tend to do with other material. So once again, they fundamentally misunderstood the source material. That should be the subtitle of this film. So what is the source material? Well, the world of the gentleman is basically a place where all literary characters actually coexist within the same universe. If you want a good example of this, you should watch the original 2014 series Penny Dreadful. I mean, it's actually an amazingly perfect example of that. That's how it should be done. Now, I could just wrap it up here, but I had to throw in one more little bonus thing for you. So 2005's Constantine, which is based off of Alan Moore's character he created for Swamp Thing, John Constantine. That's right, it's actually pronounced Constantine, and we're all the assholes. English. Cabrones. Spanish. So I'm pretty sure that Alan Moore wasn't happy with Keanu Reeves playing his character. I mean, American guy with dark hair in Los Angeles is kind of the polar opposite of the actual character. One of the best things about John Constantine as a character is that Moore and several other writers for the ongoing series Hellblazer, in which he starred, claim to have seen him in real life. Like, that's amazing. I guess the story goes that Moore was sitting in a shop eating a sandwich, and here comes Constantine around the corner, and he thought maybe it was Sting, the frontman of the Police, because that's who he's modeled after. But he's like, no, it didn't even look like Sting. It was Constantine. So did they really see this character come to life? Or maybe it was just Sting, having a laugh, having a giggle. Well, I do know, if it was a joke, it was a joke that killed. I didn't do a freeze frame.